couple years ago, I watched a movie called Donkey Skin from around 1970. It's a musical, comedy, romance, fantasy movie. And in it, the lead actress, Catherine Deneuve, is beautiful in the film. She stars as the princess of this movie. I bring this movie up because this is where was my first experience of Catherine Deneuve, and it was struck by her. And so I did a deep dive, or a little bit of a dive, or a shallow dive, and discovered some of her other work. One of those films popped up as something that I immediately wanted to check out. It took me a couple years to get around to it, but I've done that, and now it's time to discuss it. So, today's film, The Hunger. Let's talk about it. So this is by far, at least of the movies that I've seen from director Tony Scott, this is the most moody, contemplative, deliberate, thoughtful movie in his filmography that I've seen. It's no less artful. It's very artsy. And I think of that whenever I'm reminded of Tony Scott's art school background. He was a painter. And how so much of his work, even the more fast-paced, electric films like, Days of Thunder, Top Gun, Unstoppable, a lot of his fast work still has that painterly quality. Something about the artistry in it and Tony Scott's eye really works for me with this film. He's got a steady hand, obviously, which is very clear. The aesthetic is very strong, really pops. This film is probably one of those ones, I didn't know this, but immediately the first few frames, what came to me was, this is probably where the modern vampire look came from. When you think about modern day vampires and what they look like in media, for me, the first thing that comes up is something like Blade, the Blade movies, The Lost Boys. Had no idea that you could trace it back a little bit further. There's probably a version that's earlier than The Hunger even, but to me, when I see these characters in black, wearing sunglasses in different settings, that feels like, prototype of what you would see later with something like Blade, which is for like Blade's look in the movies anyway. In the comic books, he doesn't look so much like he looks in the Wesley Snipes movie, at least prior to the Wesley Snipes film. But it's one of those things that when I think about contemporary vampires, I could see how The Hunger could have been responsible for how vampires after that look. So this movie is about a vampire, which I love that the term is not used at all in this movie. So this movie is about a woman named Miriam Blaillard, who played by Catherine Deneuve. She originally was a vampire from Egypt, and she'd been living obviously a long time, from ancient Egypt times all the way to the modern day. And her husband, played by David Bowie, is aging fast. For some reason, he thought he would be living forever, and that's not the case. He's deteriorating faster than I think he wanted, which is a problem that they're desperate to figure out. At least Miriam is. Miriam's trying to find out if there's a way to reverse what's happening to him and give him some more time. Her potential answer comes in the form of Susan Sarandon's character, who is a scientist, and she and her scientist team are studying how to reverse the aging process. They figured out how to speed up the aging process, but they don't know how to turn it back. And so a lot of research. She's written a book on the subject. Miriam catches this, and she's intrigued by the concept. So she goes to seek out help from Susan Sarandon's character. And that's sort of where things get rolling. Miriam then learns that the scientist team don't really have all the answers that she's looking for to help extend the life of her partner. And ultimately, Miriam has her sights now set on Sarah, played by Susan Sarandon, who is lovely. And Sarah becomes entranced by Miriam, and there is which starts a different journey for Sarah. That if you've seen it, you know what time it is, and if you haven't seen it, you can probably guess where that goes. This is a movie that might feel slow for a lot of viewers, but I think the atmosphere and mood of it and the ambiance will be enough to sustain you as you go through the story and see. There's like flashbacks, so you get little bits of backstory that keep you interested. And then the mood of it is enough to keep you going. While I'm on the mood of this movie is A+. I like that it's kind of slow, that it feels slow, like it feels deliberate in its pacing, and as it's building towards the what happens in the story. I think it works because I think a lot of what's happening, not only is the pacing deliberate, but I feel like that is reflected in a character like Miriam. Catherine Deneuve she's so captivating. Not only is she beautiful to look at, but she moves through space like mist, and the character she's playing and the mood of the piece is kind of the same. And you see she's holding a lot of, but the way she's holding a lot of the traumas and things from her backstory, and the way she's holding, you would never really know. We can guess, we can infer, and I think the way she plays it is effective because we hint at, if you figure how long she's lived and all the partners she's had and all the loss she's gone through and the grief she's carrying over multiple like centuries, that's got to weigh pretty heavily on on someone. And to have lived through all these different lifetimes and different technological advancements and scientific advancements and things to get to a point now where there seems like there could be promise for extending life, that humans might have the power to create. You sense the hope that Miriam has. This is the one thing I think that's really great about Catherine Deneuve and how she plays this role. When she's looking at Sarah on the TV, giving an interview about this process, there's two things happening. One is she's hopeful that Sarah and her team have answers that could hopefully extend her partner's life. And there's a sense that she is almost taken with Sarah. The way she's looking at her, and it's like, who is this person? She's very pretty, and she's, it's like game recognizing game. Miriam's beautiful, and she recognizes beauty in Sarah, but Sarah's also very smart, which is something else there that may or may not be something that is adding to the attraction there, but there's clearly something there. Deneuve plays it very well, and it makes the audience member sort of wrapped up in that, because there is a trance. Not only is the trance set up in the movie, just like in the narrative, but you can also get lost in the spell as a audience member. She's totally captivating, and I know that's how I felt. David Bowie, I thought, was fantastic. I haven't seen a lot of work that he's acted in, but I've seen a few things he's been in, and he's always good. And he's good in this movie. He's very compelling. The movie really takes its time with John. You really get to see his pain and his sort of struggle with what's happening to him internally. There's not a lot of space. We don't spend a ton of time with him. But Bowie gives a performance that allows you to sit with him. And also you get a sense of his history and his life, how long he's lived, which it's not clear in the movie, but you get the inference is somewhere around 200-ish years. There's a sequence where it looks like probably something in the late 1700s or whatever it is, the way how they're dressed. But even in that time, 2 centuries-ish roughly, you get a sense of his history. And then now he's at a place where he's nearing the end of whatever this transition is. And it's scary. you can feel his fear. You can feel his like anguish around it. I think he gives a really beautiful performance, and it was hard. Personally, it was hard not to. It was hard to watch it and not think about David Bowie in real life as he dealt with his, his terminal diagnosis and what that could have been like for his family. So something similar felt like it was being played out in a way that felt very potent, and that was me bringing what I know of David Bowie's history to the experience, but it was hard to not see that. Susan Sarandon as Sarah is also very strong in this movie. She also was lovely, just from a physical perspective, but she plays a character who is kind of trapped in the middle of what's going on in the sort of the grand scheme of what it is to be immortal, and what it is to be immortal trying to figure out ways to extend life. She's very convincing, and she's totally wrapped up in Miriam's essence, which is something that is actually something that's quite dreamy. There's something that's a little hypnotic about the experience of watching these two women on screen together, because the film does a good job of not having it feel forced. So there's something about the script or the adaptation from the book, how it's shot, how it's blocked, and how it's edited, that work in tandem to make this feel fluid. And speaking of the fluidity, like there's something about, you figure Miriam's lived so long, she's had all these different partners, men and women. So she's had a long life that has been very fluid with partners to keep her company in this sort of extended existence, whatever it is. And so, things do shift. And at some point, she does find herself in a dance with Sarah. So there's something that, and it's actually there's something very sensual, obviously, about their whole dynamic, even when things are not always happening physically, but just in fact, I'll give you an example. The first time they meet, so Sarah is at a book signing, and Miriam comes to the book signing, and she's just standing there among all these people. She didn't say a word, but Sarah hears something. She senses that, she's heard some kind of call. No words exchanged. And she addresses Miriam. So it's a clear example of the hypnotic nature of, and that's just the beginning. This is before they really see each other more often, and different things transpire. There's a sensuality to how things play out, and there's a bit of a dancing before they even have extended contact with each other. And there's something beautiful about the suggestions that the movie makes around that. And then the other thing, there's a really beautiful scene where Miriam is very good. She's a piano player. Also, she plays piano. And at one point, she and Sarah are having a conversation at the home, and she's playing a song that I can't remember the name of it, but it's a song from the perspective of a woman about her female slave. And there's something about that is obviously a reference to a hint at the relationship shift between Miriam and Sarah, or the potential shift, what that could look like. Not only is the piece beautiful, and that sequence, how that scene is shot, is beautiful, but the closer the two women get, there's something that is like they're like magnets, but that are drawn together and not apart. There's something really saucy and sensual and kind of beautiful about it. And the film, and very artistic, the way certain scenes, their contact is shot. There's an art to it. It's not gratuitous. It's not all in your face. It's very particular. It's not your typical vampire lovey-dovey story. There are several things, but in particular, that's cool about this movie. I liked how the movie dealt with the practical concerns of being a vampire. You have to eat, and you need blood for that. How do you get the blood? You got to have humans somehow. You have to figure out how to, there's like a scheduling for that. It's not like you just drink blood all the time. So the one thing is that there's like a set way you eat. I guess they feed once every 6 days for, I forget what the hours are, but there is a specific set of rules in it as a vampire. You also have to think about, how do you get bodies and not arouse the suspicion of police? You got to think about that. You got to think about the timing. There's all these different things that goes into that. And obviously there's not a lot of space in the movie to really delve into it. But the fact that there's pieces of that there really makes it more real. If you were really a vampire, these are the kinds of things you would have to consider. I appreciated that very much. The other thing was, I liked that there was the science angle, that just the concept of vampires, and then someone who's not as immortal, or that is immortal, but there's like some caveat to it. And there's a need for trying to figure out, how do we make this, how do you, if you can't be immortal through transfusion, blood transfusion, like, as partners, romantic partners for centuries or whatever it is. And there's this other way, that there's a scientific potential hope for that. I like that concept. I like the idea that there's scientists involved, and there's blood transfusions, the idea of what that could do, what else is being transferred outside of just the blood, but everything that comes with that. So is that just the person's strength? That's the person's whatever, ability to withstand disease. The other thing that's cool is that it suggests that these vampires were not, like, vampires can't create other vampires, like pure vampires. You create someone it's a vampire, but it's a lesser form of what Miriam is. Miriam is what we would call a pure vampire. So John, because he's obviously has some problems 200 years after they become linked, that suggests that he's not full like she is, and which also leads to this, brings up an idea that whatever Miriam is, she's not human, like vampires or whatever they would call themselves in this world. It's another species altogether. And that is cool. That idea is cool. Something else I thought was quite effective in this movie was the visual effects and the practical effects. There are a couple sequences in this movie that deal with the dying process, the death and dying process, and then the process of decay. Those sequences were very well done and very disturbing. And particularly, look, if you're someone who has gone through recent loss, just like, we all know that's where we're headed. We know there's something about actually seeing the process in a kind of real time that's kind of it's unsettling. It happens right there before you. Obviously, we know it's a longer process, but man, they did such a good job. And then this is without like computer generated like tech. Perhaps there was some involved. There might have been a tiny bit, but for the most part, what you see on screen is there. They show the whole process of stuff falling apart. You become bones, and your bones fall. It's what the whoa. It's disturbing if you're not ready for it. So just be all that to say that it's very well done. The effects team did a tremendous job, and they did so well. It's almost to the point where it's almost gratuitous, I think. I don't think that was the point, but to me, it almost felt like, wow, okay, all right, man, we get it. We get the dude's dead. The thing's dead. It's all right. It's like, but I couldn't look away. But very good, supreme effects on display. And to take that further, narratively, something about the world that these characters are living in, that if you're a vampire and you do die, you don't die like humans die. Something about that is interesting, that you are dead, but you're still alive. You have your sense of hearing and you're conscious still. That seems like a miserable existence. Like there's some kind of way to but there's something also beautifully tragic about that. That if you're one of Miriam's partners or whatever it is, that love is still there. Like it's which leads me to another thought about about love and how beyond time, the concept of love, how it feels like that. Like you can love someone for all these years, someone you may haven't seen in years. Like you love somebody once, whatever, you had a relationship, maybe it didn't work out, whatever it is. There's still a love there. It brings up Romeo and Juliet for me. The idea that they would be in love, not make it out of that story, and in some way still be in love because they joined each other in death. And so how love is kind of beyond time. It's beyond the physical shell of what it is to be human. It's this other experience that is just can't comprehend it. Like death, in a way. You don't understand it. We know it happens, but we don't really understand. We just go, oh, it's part of the process. So something about that felt resonant. The Hunger was a very different Tony Scott movie than I'm used to, but it was certainly worth a watch. If for nothing else, I'm highlighting, David Bowie turned into a great performance. Catherine Deneuve is fantastic. Susan Sarandon is great. So the three leads are great, and this is just a different offering from Tony Scott, but no less artsy. So if you're looking for some artsy stuff and people looking really cool, everyone smoking, looking 80s cool with sunglasses, The Hunger is one of those movies for you. But if you made it to the end, thank you. I appreciate your time. But stay tuned. Reviews are going to keep coming. So keep watching. All right, I'm getting out of here. But please take it easy. Have a good afternoon. And I'll see you in the next video.